hello, and welcome. Goodness. As soon as I start talking, I start coughing. That's not a good sign. Yes, hope you are all really, really well. Welcome back to IIRL. Some more racing action for you this evening. We had some last night. The Assist Tier 2 race delayed because of the real Formula 1 race in USA this weekend. So you got back-to-back streams. How lucky are we all? Good evening, Alrays and Mr. Wiggles Gaming. Haven't seen that. Haven't seen that account before. But obviously, clearly I know who it is. It's Mr. Wiggles 1645. The music is very loud. That's strange. I haven't changed the audio settings at all. If it's loud when the cars go out on track, let me know. Tucker! Hello, mate. Have fun this evening. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the stream. It's only the loading music. Again, I haven't really changed any settings, so who knows what that's all about. Someone's gone out on track. And it's Org Rydell. Rain, rain, rain. Well, clearly not at the moment, so perhaps it's coming at the end of quali or for the race. Rain was fun last night. It did look very tricky to manage. Get some telemetry for you guys. And oh, the slap bus has decided to fit a set of inters on his car. At the beautiful Hungary ring, in the beautiful country of Hungary. Here this evening, back for round number 8 of 23, something like that, 22. Rain in the race, thank you very much for that information. As Org Rydell gets ready to start his lap, let's take you on a bit of a tour of this beautiful track, but not a very long track. You get a big bit of DRS assistance. The only bit of DRS you will get on this lap is the one on the main straight, and after turn 1, this little blast down towards turn 2, which is very tricky. You will see some cars going side by side through the flat out turn 3, but getting 2 cars side by side there will be a challenge, so watch out for some potential moves through the very tricky turn 4. Easy to invalidate and run wide. And turn 5, touch the inside curb and your car is dead meat. Pick your braking spot for this beautiful chicane. However, the curbs can play havoc with your car, so be careful with that. Through the sweeping S section of turn 8 and turn 9. Turn 10, not really a corner, but you do need to pick your line very well for turn 11, as it can be a tricky corner. Through the final 3 corners of the track now, turn 12 can take a lot of speed through there if you are brave and committed. 13, very similar to turn 2, a left-hander. 90, coming right back on yourself. Pick your line well for the final corner, which is again similar to turn 13 and turn 2. Cross the line, and Org Rydell has set the time to beat of 1 minute 18.7. Majestic. I noticed Padge was the last one to choose a car this evening, so must be feeling unwell, Padge. I'm joking around. Padge is great. So SL O'Connor then in the Mercedes, coming round for his first lap. In case you're not quite sure how this all works, we have 3 qualifying sessions: Q1 18 minutes, Q2 15 minutes, and Q3 12 minutes. If we had a full 20 cars, we would lose 5 in this session, leaving 15 for qualifying 2, but as there's only 15 here, all the drivers need to do is set a lap and retire, which is potentially why Allgrider has set a lap time that is 3 seconds slower than SL O'Connor's. The slap bus, although it says green on the left hand side of your screen, it is using the medium tyre. And a 1 minute 21 just furthers my point. You don't need to set a blisteringly quick lap time in this session, you just need to set one. And don't crash. If you crash, you will not be able to take part in Q2 or Q3. So, assuming all drivers can get round for a lap and avoid binning it in a wall, everyone will be getting through. Amos Fairley goes P2, 4 tenths away from his teammate. Pete, who I've not seen before, so good to witness some new drivers racing, and Slap Bus as well. Haven't seen him race, so be interesting to see how they get on. I'm sure they're very experienced in league racing and things like that, as SL O'Connor has retired in the pits. RPR Maverick has invalidated and is just getting out of the way. Slap Bus has also retired in the pits. Yeah, Q2 will be a 15-minute session and will happen in a little over... just waiting for that yellow flag to go. In just over 12 minutes we will have Q2, where we will see some more competitive times than a 1 minute 18, 1 minute 21s. And because it's a wet start to the race, you won't see a lot of drivers going out using the medium tyres in Q2. You will just see a lot of drivers been in the mediums in this session. You can see Dayman, Wiggles, Prev and Appy all out on the medium tyres, as has Ross. He's set his lap on the mediums. Just get the mediums out of the way in this session. You don't need them in the remaining part of qualifying. And you've got potentially 3 or 4 set of soft tyres, depending on whether you get through to Q3 or not. So Dayman sets a lap, very leisurely 1 minute 26. I guess the challenge here in this session is how slow can you go on those mediums. Wiggles almost invalidating, running a little bit wide there at turn 9, but getting away with it. Does go purple in sector 2 on our track map, but that can also be a little bit confusing as to when it pops up purple. Anyways, Wiggles is coming round now on the medium tyres to complete his lap. It's in a 1 minute 18. Fairly not quite satisfied with that 1 minute 16.2, goes half a second faster, and maybe he's using this Q1 session to flex some muscles and see how fast he can really go on this track. Alpha Ross fan, hope you're well. And SL O'Connor in the chat, hello, and Lando too. And Hyper as well. All of these people in the chat, hope you are all really well. Those driving, we hope you have a great race. This is a track which is kind of like Marmite for a lot of drivers. Not quite sure how they feel. Some people absolutely love it. Some people despise it. Jota says hello from Chile. Hello from England, and thank you for the follow 50 minutes ago before the stream started. Really appreciate that. We are, ironically, on 69 followers. I don't know why I chose that moment to look at the follower number, but there you go. A little bit of a joke for you. All of you peeps out there that get it. In fact, I think we have 14 drivers, because P12 seems to be missing on my screen, so... yes, apologies. I think there's 14 drivers here this evening. Hoike has invalidated his time. Unusual for Hoike to invalidate. He is very, very quick. You don't usually see Hoike invalidating, so maybe he is trying to push and see how close he can get to Fairley's lap time up there at the top. Always, it's a Mickey Mouse track. I don't understand the reference. I know Mickey Mouse, but I don't know what that comment means, so if you could explain that, that would be fantastic. Predator says boring track. Very interesting. I think it's far from boring, just because you have to really be focused, otherwise one mistake and you could easily put it into a wall. Dr. Edward goes P5, 1 minute 17.6. But of course, we're not really counting the times at the moment. Fairley and Connor are very close, only just over a tenth separating them. Hoike, meanwhile, starting a new lap after that invalidation last time. Ah, that's how we Dutch people call it, because it looks a bit like Mickey Mouse. Ah, fair enough. Had no idea Dutch people called it a Mickey Mouse track, so that is another bit of information for my already massive head to comprehend. Very hard track to drive, but fun when you get it right, says Damon. I completely agree. There are some corners which I actually love on this track, like that corner there, turn 12 I think it is. Absolutely love that. Turn 13, not a fan. Turn 14, bit meh. Some people love it, but the curbs on this track can be very ruthless at times. That guy 69 is running late. Okay. Well, thank you for the info. Maybe he'll join, but if he doesn't join in the next couple of minutes, he won't have a spot in Q2. Technical, you may say, maximum concentration and better than Red Bull pouring. I love a good controversial comment. It's great. Hoike on the mediums goes fastest of the medium runners, so look out for Hoike, and swiftly gets off the track to let the Ferrari through of Prev. His teammate Appy is already retired, so we know it's Prev. This might not be the best race for Hoy, says Hyper. Not the best qualifier, but a great racer. But very difficult to overtake here. That's very true. Good comment, but you never know. If you hook up a perfect lap on this track, you can easily shoot up there. Even if you're not great at quali, or don't think you're great at quali, you can easily throw yourself into the mix with one perfect lap. Just the one driver without a lap time, so I assume RPL Maverick will be on his way out of the pits. Pretty good. The rain will separate the top guys today. Have to agree there, Dayman. For those who joined the stream late or missed that bit of the conversation a little bit earlier, about 10 minutes ago, there is there is rain in the race. Again, it looks like those track limits at the end of turn 9, looks like you may slightly be able to get away with running a tiny bit wide. Thought I've seen a couple of drivers run wide at the exit of turn 9, but no invalidation, so might be able to exploit that in the game if you're fortunate. And as Prev goes into the pits, that leaves just one man out on the track. Make that 2 men out on the track, as Pete is just coming out for another run. And hello to Amos Fairley. I've no idea if I've already said that, but thought I'll say it a second time, just to be sure I said hello to you. It doesn't have a % of rain. Okay, makes me think dry. It could be dry, could be wet. More fun for the viewers, not knowing what's going to happen. Very unpredictable. This track in the wet actually does provide some opportunities for drivers to overtake. So it is very, very difficult to overtake on this track. You need to really get close in the final sector and utilize DRS really well, and make sure your ERS storage is well prepared. You don't want to go using all of it in the first few laps, because you might need it. So RPR Maverick doesn't need to set the world alight with this lap, but just needs to make sure he doesn't crash on it. You can see a lot of drivers purposely missing that apex at turn 5, all for a good reason. And this is turn 9, where you can run a tiny bit wide. That's what it seems to look on broadcast cam, and maybe get away without an invalidation. So I wonder if drivers will be really pushing the limits in Q2 and Q3. It will be interesting to see how drivers approach Q2, and well, you did say RPR Maverick needs to just get round and not crash, and had a bit of a moment there, but gets through it fine. Good car control. 118.1. Pete, meanwhile, is only a fraction off of his personal best through Sector 2, so good last sector here. Could improve his time, put him closer to the top runners. Just narrowly down. But always nice to see drivers pushing. And now is probably a good time to have a look at the standings before Q2 really gets underway and we can sink our teeth into some proper driving. We've got Hoyke at the top of the championship with 145 points, leading AMS Fairley by 30 points. Ross is in 3rd place after a good string of results in the last 5 races. Although Ross hasn't won yet, so that means that his gap behind Fairley is 39 points. So the top 3 pretty spread out. Prev having a really good season. Points finishes in all 7 of the races this season, and all finishes gaining 6 points or higher. So Prev being very consistent in the points. Watch out for him. He is only 9 points behind Ross in 4th in the championship standings. John is 5th in the standings, although not here this evening, and has missed the last couple of races, so maybe a little bit busy at the moment. Estelle O'Connor P6, Wiggles in 7th, Allgridle 8th, Appy 9th, Flew in 10th, and that is very impressive for Flew considering he's only raced two races this season after recovering from I think an injury. So that's what the drivers are looking like. Constructors, meanwhile, Mercedes, they do have a very good team this year of Fairley and Connor, as you can see at the top of the boards as Q1 is over. They are leading the championship by 8 points, 156 total for them. Alpine, that is Dr. Edwards and Hoy K. You can see they're 4th and 5th, again going pretty well. They're only 8 points behind, so we could see a change in constructor leader this evening. The Alfa Romeo of Ross and Allgridle aren't doing too badly at all. 102 points, but they are 54 points away from our leaders, who are Mercedes, and some more competition further down the constructors' field. Unfortunately, AlphaTauri, have it all to do. Only a couple of points this season. So hoping for a nice strong result there is Maverick this evening. Nice comms, thank you Lando. Much appreciated. And I'll say my line anyway, because I'm not quite sure what the weather's doing for the race, like exactly for the start, but this is where strategy takes centre stage. We've got Ross and the Haas, one of the Haasses, out racing right now, Mr. Wiggles. Two people who are part of the management here at IIRL. So having a bit of fun in Sector 1 there, love to see that. And Wiggles deciding to let Ross go, and there are 4 drivers still in the pits: Appy, Sam, Maverick and Pete. Interesting, Fairley is out on the medium tyres right now, so he's not convinced it's going to be a wet start to the race, and he wants to potentially start on the mediums come the start of the race. That is, if he can get a good enough lap to go through into Q3 on. May be forced into using the softs, because every single driver, apart from Fairley, is equipping the soft tyres for their laps. A lot of drivers starting laps. You can see in Sector 2 and 3, a lot of drivers queuing up to start their laps. And of course it is difficult to get out of the way, so if you mess up your lap you need to be really cautious and look at the track map. Again, you see Ross there, you just went wide at turn 9, it sort of extended, came back on the track and was fortunate not to get an invalid lap time there. And we'll have to wait and see what Ross's lap time looks like. As in Monopoly terms, he's just got a get out of jail free card there. And also, if you run a bit wide at turn 14 to, and sort of go over the pit entry line, you could also get invalidated that way too. Here comes Mr. Wiggles now across the line. He is 4 tenths behind Ross. Here comes Slapbus now. What can he manage? He can go into the 15s, and he is 3 tenths faster than Ross, and Slapbus is also half a tenth up on Hoy K. That is very impressive. Second Haas of Dayman comes across the line, but is a second slower than his teammate, so probably will go faster than that on a future lap. Bog Rider a little bit wide there through 14. Maybe a bit too much speed, or maybe struggling with brakes. But seems to be gearing up for another lap on those soft tyres. And here comes AMS Fairley across the line. What can he do now? Remember, he is on the mediums. 1 minute 20, so maybe an issue in that lap. We know he can go quicker than that. Second Mercedes now of Vettel O'Connor. Dayman has crashed, and you can see it right there as Connor's gone past him. Dayman is out. Had to set a lap time, and now will automatically leave us in Q2. People still do need to beat that time if they want to get through to Q3, so we do have an early benchmark. SL O'Connor, a 17.3. And also Dr. Edwards now has crashed. And that is at the penultimate corner. I wonder if we can get on board with that. Oh, he's gone into the pits and he's hit the pit wall. Very easy to do on this track. So Dr. Edwards and Dayman will be leaving us this session through terminal damage. Let's go on board with Prev now as he starts his flying laps. See what this beautiful scarlet red Ferrari can accomplish in the next 1 minute and 15 seconds. Beautiful control under braking. Remember, this is a no assist tier, so none of these drivers running ABS, traction control, racing line. This is all to do with the driver's skill, the hardest form of sim racing. Getting very close to the inside curb there at turn 5, but not touching it, not putting his car at risk. And very controlled there through the chicane as Slapbus goes even quicker. Was on a 15.9, now on a 15.6. It certainly looks like that time is good enough to get him through to the next part of qualifying. Taking a lot of curb through 12, love that. Big commitment, Fairley gets out of the way very nicely there. It's been a good lap from Prev, and I reckon this may go near the top of the timing screens. Across the line, and 5th place, 16.9. Not too bad there from the Ferrari. Goes ahead of his teammate by exactly 0.2 of a second. We saw Fairley getting out of the way of Prev's lap, and now getting out of the way of AJ Sam. So maybe Fairley struggling on those medium tyres, perhaps. There's only 7 minutes left of the session, so Fairley needs to think about whether the mediums are a viable option to continue with in this session. AJ Sam invalidates. And it is the two McLarens who we are waiting on to put their first lap time on the board. As you can see, the wheel of Dayman's car just chilling out. Marshall's deciding not to clear that bit away. Super committed through the first part of the final corner there. You can see some people sort of running wide and sort of cutting back, trying to get a good exit. Some people like to just throw it in there, let it drift wide a little bit. And it seems to have worked for Pete. He's up to P3 ahead of Ross, which certainly is no shabby achievement. Ross very quick in his own respects, and Pete's gone quicker. You hope you get the wheel back for the race. Me too, mate. Although, with the rain threat, you won't need that specific tyre. Those red mark soft tyres won't help you in the rain at all, mate. Unless you're going for a bit of drifting around the Hungary ring. Dayman, yeah, was doing a second push lap on those tyres as well as the softs don't last around here at all. Okay, so valuable information there for the drivers and for those watching the stream, of course. Can't really do 2 laps on one set of soft tyres. AJ Sam running very wide there at turn 9, and again, no invalidation because perhaps he's lost enough time through that corner. And Dr. Edward, known as Dr. Morales95 in the chat, understeered into pit wall like a big brain. Very unfortunate when that happens. AJ Sam across the line is only 3 milliseconds away from Org Rydell. Currently the bottom 4 are at risk of dropping out of this session. With only 5 minutes and 10 seconds remaining of Q2, it's imperative now that they really pop in a good enough lap to beat Dr. Edwards 1 minute 17.6. That is the cutoff. Okay, goes purple through sector 1 on our track map. Hoike is catching up to AJ Sam, who is on a slow lap here, so Sam needs to be careful that doesn't get in the way. Potentially could have distracted Hoike there as a big slide out of turn 13 and completely drops the pace of the car. Into the pits he comes. So perhaps AJ Sam might be in a bit of bother there with Hoike. Ross invalidates the lap, coming around to start a new one. However, AMS Fairley has gone on to the soft tyre. Those mediums, which he did want to start the race on. Fortunately not going to happen on this occasion. Through 10 and 11. Seems pretty planted, and he's almost 3 seconds up on his time. Which will put him into the 1 minute 17s, but he could go even faster in this final sector, push him into the 16s or maybe even the 1 minute 15s, which would definitely get you through to Q3 as it stands. Around the final corner, and it is a 15, it's a 15.6, but it's slower than Slapbus's 15.6. I'm sure Fairley will be pretty satisfied with that lap. Should be on his way through to Q3. We've got AJ Sam in the pits. We've got Maverick out on a set of red mark soft tyre. So he's got a couple of seconds to gain on his personal best. Can he do it? He's got all the tools he needs. The red mark soft tyre, the best weapon of choice. What can he manage? Outlaps for both Maverick and Sam. Yellow flags, drivers jockeying for position, trying to find a good spot on the circuit. Org Rydell's on a slow lap. SL O'Connor did a slow lap previously, but seems to be on a quick push lap now and is 3.5 tenths up on his personal best. That will currently pop him up 1 position, but again, could easily improve in the second and third part of the lap. A little bit wide there at turn 11. Gets away with it. Maybe he lost enough time going wide, but SL O'Connor a little bit fortunate perhaps. We'll stay on board just in case he has decided to keep his foot into this lap. Around the final corner he comes. He may go for a second lap after that, but goes fastest, so he doesn't need to go for another lap. SL O'Connor, some may say controversially going top, seeing as he did run wide. Uppy, not on fast lap. And with only 45 seconds left of the session, he is potentially in danger here. If AJ Sam and Maverick can go above Appy, Appy will drop out. Appy not letting that Haas of Mr. Wiggles get a slipstream. Mr. Wiggles goes past and is on a flying lap, a little bit quicker through the first part. And again, a little bit wide there at turn 11. You did see the wheels just go off track, but got away with it. So maybe the game is a little bit more lenient on the Hungary ring, and Mr. Wiggles a bit of a slide on the entry to that penultimate corner and decides to give up on his lap. So Appy comes into the pits. Ross is in P6 and safe. AJ Sam though has finished the session and can't make it through. He will start in 14th. Maverick now is on a lap, but that is not the best chicane he was hoping for. And I'm sure that has eliminated his potential to get out of this session. So there you have it. AJ Sam and RPR Maverick will be leaving us and starting at the back of the field on row 7. Row 6 will be a pair of crashies in Q2, Dayman and Dr. Edward. And everyone from Orgridle upwards inside the top 10 will partake in qualifying 3, which will be happening in just a minute's time. So there you have it, Q2 comes to an end, and we have Esther O'Connor out on top of the timing screens. We have Slapbus, Fairley, Hoyke, Pete, Ross, Prev, Wiggles, Appy and Orgridle all into the top 10, and that guy, 69, has just joined, so he will start in P15 behind AJ Sam, Maverick, Dayman and Dr. Edward, who will be leaving us in Q2. And as Q3 gets underway, 12 minutes will decide who starts on the front row and who will start in 10th place for the race. A lot of people getting out on track as soon as they can, jockeying for position. We've got SL O'Connor out, we've got the Williams behind of Slapbus, and we have the Ferrari of Prev. following the Alfa Romeo of Org. 4 guys out on track as soon as the session has started. AMS Fairley is now out on track, as is Mr. Wiggles, second Alfa Romeo of Ross, and the second Ferrari of Prev is of Appy, sorry, is just coming out of the pits. We've still got Hoi K and Pete to expect out on track. We're going ball with Org, as he is at the head of the field. In terms of track position, behind him there's a big fight going on for who wants track position between Prev, Slapbus and SLR Connor. And drivers need to be careful that you leave suitable space in front and behind you. You don't want to lose downforce by following a car too close in front of you. The more that these back up, the more that AMS Fairley needs to be careful that he's got suitable space. You can see Prev being very cautious. Org starts his lap then. I expect everyone will be using the soft Redmark soft tyres. So no question about what tyres they're using. Let us know your predictions in chat for pole position. Ross Fan is supporting Ross. Org a little bit wide there through turn 5, and that will cost him a heck of a lot of time. Getting on the grass at the exit of that corner will slow you down massively. So we may not see Org best on this specific occasion. Hoi K and Pete now out on track and coming through sector 3, so they'll be starting their laps imminently. Lando says Hoy will deliver. Fairly for pole, says Dayman. All different predictions. So, Org across the line. We know he had an issue on the lap. 1 minute 17.6. That's a couple of seconds slower than what Slapbus managed in Q2. Prev comes across the line at 16.8. AMS Fairley goes quickest on a 15.4. Mr. Wiggles, a 16.3, goes into second, but is replaced in second by Ross, who does a 1 minute 15.9. Prev goes ahead of his teammate Appy. Appy, sorry, goes P5 behind his teammate. Hoi K has invalidated, which we've said twice this evening. Very surprising indeed. Slapbus is out on another lap as he invalidated the first, so the next one to come round to complete a lap will be Pete. Let's see what he can manage in the McLaren. Looking pretty good in the first couple of parts of qualifying. And Pete goes P3. Very nice lap there from Pete. SLR Connor and Slapbus on valid lap times on their second attempts. Here comes the Alpine and goes P2 by a tenth of a second. SLR Connor then goes P4, beating Pete's time by less than a tenth. Hoi K has ducked into the pits, a couple of invalid lap times for him perhaps. Thinking better to shove a new set of soft tyres on and get a bit of a head start on the field as they are on in laps. APS Appy into the pits as well. Org improved on his... has he improved on his time? I think he's on a lap right now to improve his time. And through the sector 2 split, he's half a second up. So far, AMS Fairley leads Slapbus by a tenth. Ross is 4/10 behind the pair. SL O'Connor and Pete are very close behind Ross. Orgreidel improves his time by 4/10 of a second and pops himself above the Ferrari of APS Api. And lots of people diving into the pits. Mr. Wiggles, meanwhile, is round at the penultimate corner and needs to be careful that he doesn't get invalidated. AMS Fairley was on a lap we did not know about, and boy, do we know about that lap right now. 1 minute 15.2. 3/10 faster than the slap bus and improves his grip on provisional pole. SL O'Connor seems to be on and in lap, second slower in the first part of the lap, but Fairley, well, could that be the lap time that secures him pole? We've seen some pretty quick lap times in the first couple of qualifying sessions, but nothing that fast. It's the fastest we've seen this evening. Fairly too quick. Well, I have to say, if there is someone that could challenge him at the top, it could be Slapbus, it could be SL O'Connor, his teammate, who has improved his time, by the way, has gone up to P3 with a 3/10 improvement. OK, meanwhile, coming round the final sector. A little bit of a bump to negotiate through turn 13 there. And a bit of a slide in turn 14, so it's not been the prettiest sector 3 he's ever done, but goes P3 nonetheless, and you just get the feeling without that slide into the final corner, perhaps could have gone above Slapbus into P2, but OK showing that we should not write him off. I'll tell you what, could be going for another lap here. Drivers starting to filter back out onto the track. Slapbus is out. Pete, Prev and Appy all out onto the track now. That Slapbus starting his next flying run right now. We'll stay on board with Hoy and then we'll go on board with Slapbus. Prev starting his lap now. Ross is on the track, as is Wiggles, them two continuing their little tussle of track position. A little bit wide there at turn 11, and just like SL O'Connor did in Q2, and extends the limits of 12, and does get invalidated there, Hoyke. So, and overtaking the McLaren into the pits. The McLaren thought Hoyke was on a lap. Hoyke was like, no, I'm going into the pits. I might be able to get out for one more run here. So, a little bit of a confusion there between Pete and Hoy. Yeah, a couple of extending of corners going on here. I know not all drivers will take too kindly to other drivers extending, but if the game doesn't give you a penalty, the game doesn't give you a penalty. Slapbus improves by a 10th, but still is a 10th and a half away from AMS Fairley's time, who is still in the pits, so maybe he's done for the session. Connor and Ross, Wiggles and Org, all on out laps. We've got Pete and Prev on flying laps, although Pete is a second down through the first part. And so, I note that Prev's last lap was a second down. He's on a new lap now. All drivers out on the track. No one is in the pits. Hoyke and Fairley back out after coming into the pits very recently. They will definitely get round for another lap. There's still 1 minute 20 left of the session before the checkered flag falls. So everyone will get a chance at one more lap, whether it's the lap they're on or whether it's the next time round the circuit. So these times could easily change and shift all over the place. APS Api, meanwhile, has gone from P10 to P7 with a big gain on his lap. Prev not managing to improve on his time on that occasion. Orgrido has invalidated this lap, but will go again. Mr. Wiggles, that was a slower lap by 0.4, but again, he will have another attempt. Pete was on a slow lap, now is putting the pedal to the metal. SL O'Connor coming across the line to complete a lap, but I don't think there was any improvement on that one. Ross a little bit wide there, but lifted off the accelerator, and interesting to see if Ross is going to continue with this lap. It did seem like he lost a lot of time there, but I'm sure he'll carry on. Pete coming across the line now and goes ahead of Ross into the 1:15s as we see the Haas of Mr. Wiggles going very wide at turn 9 there behind Ross. Ross is a couple of seconds down now, so he won't be able to improve his time at all. Slapbus, meanwhile, is 0.2 up on Sector 2, and this should go provisional pole, and it does, a 15.1. AMS Fairley, though, through Sector 1 is a 10th up. This pole position fight is getting very, very tense. Even just a 10th improvement from Fairley will put him back on top dog. And he's lost a bit of time through Sector 2. As it stands, he will take pole position away from Slapbus, but he can't afford to lose any more milliseconds in this final sector. This is going to come down to every single inch of the track. SL O'Connor finishes a lap and goes P3, only a couple of tenths away from pole, and that is a great lap, but Fairley indeed makes it stick, and a great lap there, 1:15.115, very satisfying to look at, and I'm sure Fairley will be very satisfied with that time. Meanwhile, Hoike comes out of nowhere with a big gain through Sector 3 and puts his Alpine on the front row of the grid. Wow. Well, you looked at Q2 and you saw the pace of Slapbus and you thought he could have this in the bag here. Then SL O'Connor came in with a lap at the end of Q2 and went fastest. OK wasn't really in the picture at that point. AMS Fairley, we know he's got pace, but pulled out all the stops on his final lap there to gain pole position, and then Hoike out of nowhere to pop it on the front row. And like I said earlier, in response to someone saying Hoike is not great at quali, like, all you need is one perfect lap, set it up, knock it down. All of a sudden now, Hoike's on the front row. And if he gets a good start, could take the lead into turn 1 ahead of Fairley. Could be on for a race win, you never know. So there you have it, very, very close between the top 4. Fairley, Hoike, Slapbus and Connor will make up the first 2 rows of the grid. Pete and Ross will be on row 3. Row 4 is an all-Dutch row of Appy and Prev into the 16s, and Wiggles and Orgrider will make up row 5. Well, I'll tell you what, my voice was getting excited last night with the conclusion of the 82 race at Great Britain. My voice was doing similar things in that qualifying session. That was very, very impressive stuff there from the drivers. But of course, this isn't the race, the only race we do this week. We have an Assist Tier 1 race, and there you see it. That will be full wet conditions, I imagine. I'll just check on Race Director whether it's inters or wets, but it definitely looks like enough rain for wets, but it is intermediate tyres for the start. So there you have it. That guy, of course, joining in 15th, will be shocked to see this amount of rain. Yeah, this isn't the only race we will be doing this week. On Thursday night, we will have coverage of the Assist Tier 1 race. Join Spark 666 on this channel on Thursday at the same time. 7:30 start. And on Sunday night, join TD if he can get a good enough connection to stay in the lobby. Join TD for the Assist Tier 2 coverage, which is on Sunday this coming week. And the rain here will throw a lot of things up in the air. Qualifying all in the dry, all in the blazing sunshine, that's all well and good, but we could see drivers like Wiggles, who qualified in P9, they could be running a fully wet setup, and as a result they could have lost some time in the dry conditions. We could see Slapbus fairly running dry setups, trying to maximise their quali pace, and end up perhaps suffering in the race. We just don't know what the setups are going to be for each specific driver, whether they're running something similar. Could be running a hybrid of dry to wet if they know it's going to dry towards the end of the race. We just don't know. And all of this has this race poised beautifully on a knife edge. And let's not forget, of course, very easy to make a mistake in the wet. Very easy to miss a braking spot. Especially seeing as you've been going around the track braking in dry lines, and now you've got to be braking earlier to accommodate for the wet conditions. This is going to require a lot of concentration for the drivers. They will not get the advantage, of course, of DRS in wet conditions, so they're going to have to rely on good traction, their setups, their ERS management. All of these factors are going to play a key in unlocking the potential of this race. And in 1 minute we will be getting the formation lap underway. Let us know your predictions in the chat. Who do you think is going to come out on the podium? Or indeed, who is going to win the race? Certainly there are 4 drivers who seem to be a little bit quicker than the rest. Fairley, SL O'Connor, both in the Mercedes. The Williams of Slapbus and the Alpine of Hoyke. And here we go, the countdown is ready. We are ready. We've had enough waiting. If you haven't got a cup of tea to get you through this race, and in fact you probably won't be drinking the tea, it will probably go cold, because I'm sure we'll have loads of exciting action for you in the next 45 minutes or so. 35 laps of the Hungaro ring, Hungary Grand Prix. Oh, and we have SL O'Connor trying to get off the line and warm his tyres. Ends up pulling a nice little stunt drift onto the grass. A little bit fortunate that Pete didn't run into the back of him and get early disqualifications from the formation lap. Put your chips on the Alpine. Certainly not a bad car to put your chips on. So, just confirmation, everyone will be starting on the intermediate tyres. There is a Haas car who I think has spun through turn 2 and 3 and is certainly getting back up to speed very slowly. That's Dayman for you. Not Dayman as in that's like Typical of Dayman. That's not what I meant. It's just Dayman in case you're wondering which house. There's not much point looking at the tyres for now, so I'll just take it off and put one less thing on your screen to worry about. AMS Fairley having quite a fast formation lap. It seems like a couple of drivers, including Prev in the Ferrari, is keen to go a little bit slower. And also Slapbus, it looks like, looking to go a little bit slower as well on that formation lap. Pizarro is predicting Hoy, Fairley and Pete on the podium. Fairley, Hoy and Edward, says Lando. Let's not forget Edward and Dayman crashing out in Q2, so potentially they could be quick enough to challenge for some good points, if not even a podium. Predator predicts SL O'Connor, Slapbus and Prev, so predicting a good start there for Prev. And as we wait for Dayman just to come round after that little bit of a spin through the first couple of corners, I'm sure the drivers won't mind too much, but as Dayman comes to fill P12, just awaiting everyone to connect for the start of the race. And here we go, a very quick connection and the lights are on. Maverick has jumped the start and has a drive-through penalty, and that is the Avatari you can see going very quickly through the middle of the field. Side by side now go Fairley and Slapbus. It looks like Slapbus is broke later. Fairley has the better line, maintains the lead out of turn 1 with his lovely green and black helmet there. And a little bit wide there, braking zone for turn 2, and Ross goes down the inside of the pair of them. And from Fairley's really good start, defended from Slapbus, he's now got work to do in front of him. Ross capitalising on a couple of mistakes there from Fairley and Slapbus down the inside of turn 2. Great move and great opportunism, I guess, from Ross. So he takes the lead. We've got that guy coming up from P15. He's in P11 right now. Dayman has had a bit of a poor start. Maybe tyres aren't quite working for him from the formation lap. Appy overtaking Maverick, or Grydal overtaking that guy, and Dr. Edward also following suit. Meanwhile, Ross has a 1 second lead coming through Sector 2. So Ross perhaps maybe has a bit of a wet setup on, and that may be why he didn't challenge for pole. Side by side now, Slapbus and Fairley coming through turn 13, and that could have easily ended in tears for either or both driver. And a big slide there from Fairley coming out of the final corner, and you can just see how tricky these conditions are. Maverick is into the pits for his drive-through. That will send him roughly 20 or 25 seconds back. But of course, safety car could come out, bunch the field up. He's right back in the race, so Maverick does perhaps need to hope for a safety car for some points this evening. And there you see the predicted pit stop strategy. It's either a 1-stop or a 2-stop. Don't expect to see anyone go 35 laps on one set of intermediate tyres. Slapbus a little bit wide there at turn 4, and maybe could have got a warning for that. So we need to keep an eye on the warnings. Ross, meanwhile, is really loving these wet conditions. 1.9 seconds now on lap 2. Of course, there is no DRS in the wet, but still, you do want a nice gap. They say you want a 2 or 3 second gap out front, just in case someone tries to undercut you from behind. But the more that Slapbus and Fairley fight with each other, more that Ross can start to pull a gap, and you can just see he's inching away. Every corner it's going up by half a tenth or a tenth of a second, and Fairley seems to be really struggling in these wet conditions, maybe taking a couple of laps to adapt to the conditions. And a big slide out of the final corner yet again for Fairley. Down the outside goes Slap Bus and seems to have the move completed. Fairly just backing off, doesn't want to run into the Williams. But the Williams, again, not like in turn one. That's a couple of times he's gone a little bit wide there. Let's not forget about Hoi K. He is lying in wait, prowling like a raging tiger right now. Ross, meanwhile, is absolutely licking his chops. 3 seconds is the lead, and we've not even completed 3 laps. Pete was in 5th after qualifying. He's dropped to P8. Preva's overtaken him. But Pete is still within striking distance of that Ferrari, so watch out for that fight. Mr. Wiggles also good start from P9. He's now in P6. SL O'Connor has gone slightly backwards off his starting position of 4th, but again, still one mistake out in front from any of these drivers and could easily capitalise on that. Dr. Edward is right behind Org Rydell, who has just got a 3-second time penalty, the first of the evening. Maverick, after that drive-through, is half a minute down on the field, so like we said, hoping for a safety car as the rain continues to belt down on the helmet of the drivers. AMS Fairley seems to be getting to grips now with these conditions. Slap Bus moving off the racing line, perhaps those tyres overheating slightly, depending on your setup, your tyre pressures and whatnot. Could easily overheat the tyres very quickly, so we'll drop back with that fight in a little bit. Ross, that gap out front is kind of stabilising now at 3 seconds, so Fairley starting to find his feet. To loyal servants of IIRL, SL O'Connor and Mr. Wiggles. Been racing together for quite a while. Mr. Wiggles looks like has a nice little setup, nice handy setup for the wet conditions here. How long is it raining for, says Lando? Honestly, I don't know. There is a chance it may dry up towards the end, but we'll just have to wait and see. We're all in the boat that we don't know what's going on here. Bit of a slide there from SL O'Connor out of the final corner. Yep, again Jota. Not quite sure what the weather's doing. We're just going to have to find out together, I'm afraid. Usually we rely on the drivers telling us in chat, but we haven't been told an awful lot this evening. Looks like rain is getting less, says Alrays. Indeed, it is. It is getting less. From what we saw a couple of laps ago on the main straight, it was bucketing it down. It's probably reducing by about 30 or 40% now, so this rain is getting lighter. We may see a transition to dries, which means that those with a dry setup on, potentially Fairley, Slap Bus, Hoy and Connor, could come back into this race. We just don't know. Bit wide there from Connor and from Wiggles through turn 11. Very tricky conditions, as I'm sure everyone can appreciate. Slap Bus did drop away from Fairley past the second mark, but now he's back within half a second, so maybe Fairley starting to struggle on the tyres, or maybe Slap Bus is coming back into this now. Fairley missing the apex to turn 1. Slap Bus has to make sure that he doesn't collide with Fairley here. One bit of damage in the wet will be crucial and critical to your race, and I'm sure Ross will be kind of glad that these two are fighting again, because the more that you fight, the more you lose time. You can see Ross now 3.5 seconds in the lead. That guy is fighting his way back up the field from last after joining quali late. He's now up to P9 and only a couple of seconds behind Pete. And you can just see how difficult it is for the drivers to keep this on the straight and narrow and drive as fast as possible. Hoike has dropped back by a few seconds, so Hoike perhaps having a bit of a couple of moments in the last couple of laps. Fairly under pressure, says Predator. Looks like that gap has opened up now to, again, a second, so it seems to me like Fairley and Slapbus have really good laps, but then they can't maybe keep that consistent over the whole race. And again, that rain is definitely looking like it's clearing up. Gap out front is 3.7 seconds. Ross leads Fairley. Slapbus is a second behind, but is on the podium as it stands. Slapbus has a nice little gap behind of 3.3 seconds to Hoike, who has a 3.5 second gap behind him, Vessel O'Connor, who is still engaged in this enthralling fight with Mr. Wiggles. And it looked like Wiggles is really frustrated here by Essel O'Connor. I think Wiggles perhaps could get this move done this lap from what we've seen in the last 10 or 15 seconds. Bit of a correction from Connor. And yeah, this rain looks like it's about to stop in the next few laps. Wiggles going well this evening, but needs to make sure he gets past Connor with some urgency. And there, Connor goes wide. Wiggles taking the opportunity down the inside, takes P5, and I'm sure Wiggles will be very relieved that he's got that move done there. Mistake from Essel O'Connor. He's not out of the race, of course. He's just dropped behind the Haas. But it is still raining, so expect to see people on those inters for another maybe 5 or 10 laps. And of course, if it continues to rain, we could see someone go in for a new set of inters and try and make their way through the fields. Oh, and a bit of exit curb there for Pete. That guy is flying right now. We mentioned a few laps ago he's 2.8 seconds behind this fight with Pete and Prev. I wonder if that guy is running a completely wet setup, because he is absolutely flying right now. One of the fastest men on the track, fastest drivers on the track, I should say. Slapbus, meanwhile, is right now on the back of Fairley again. He's all over the back of him. Wiggles is pulling away from Connor after that overtake into turn 12. So Wiggles is flying. Slapbus is gaining on Fairley. That guy also seems to be having a good time of it so far. Battle for P11 hotting up. Orgrido has a 3-second time penalty, but it's still early days, so we can't really take that into consideration right now. Dr. Edward is looking to use his Alpine to get past that Alfa Romeo. Nice fights going up and down the field for points and for positions. Which drivers is going to jump them with all the right crossover moments, says Alvarez. That is a very good point. If it does completely dry and it is time for slicks, hitting at the precise right moment will be critical. But of course, while this rain is still falling, they can't think about slick tyres. They have to get their head down and still in wet condition mode. That guy all over the back now of Prev. Essel O'Connor has caught back up, meanwhile, to Wiggles. Slapbus still only a few tenths away from Fairley. And that gap out front is still kind of stabilising between 3 and 4 seconds here. So Ross isn't romping away with this. Fairley's doing well to defend from Slapbus and also not to let that gap in front get any bigger. Lap 9 of 35. Make that lap 10 of 35, and AJ Sam, only the second driver to pick up a time penalty, which I have to say, in wet conditions around this track is good going. And there goes that guy down the inside of Prev, side by side. Is there going to be contact? You saw Prev a little bit of a mistake there through turn 13, and through turn 14 that guy had the inside line, but Prev's not giving up on this. It's going to be the last of the late breakers who's going to channel their Daniel Ricciardo. It is going to be that guy, and he does go into P7. Really good race for the Red Bull driver at the moment. Meanwhile, Pete, after that slight mistake that let the Red Bull through, he's now trying to capitalise on Prev, who seems to be sliding a little bit in the last lap or so. Got Dr. Edwards still on the back of Olgridle, not making that move done, still in P12. Slapbus has lost about 6 or 7 tenths in the last lap or two. But that gap's starting to shrink again, so lots of fights up and down the field. Hard to know which drivers to spectate, which moves I'm gonna try and predict. And in the foreground there, you see that guy is off at the penultimate corner, running a little bit wide. And Mr. Wiggles getting overtaken by SLR Connor as the rain continues to fall. That rain has stayed the same intensity for the last 5 laps or so. So the rain is not ending yet, and it looks like Mr. Wiggles' tyres look pretty slippery right now. Would be really good if do the slick intermediates like we've seen in F1 recently at Turkey. Be really good if they had that in this game. Mr. Wiggles again, another big slide out of turn 5, and needs to be careful that he doesn't bin it. The more you slide, the more eager you get on the throttle trying to catch up to the car in front, the more at risk you put yourself putting it in a wall and ending your race early. SLR Connor going a little bit wide there at turn 11, and that's not the first time we've said that this evening. Bryce the Beast, thank you for the follow, and he's back in IIRL, so welcome back. Hope you enjoy your racing here. So expect to see Price, I'm not sure what division he's in, but expect to see Price at some point in the week. That guy has a 3-second time penalty, and that's not going to help his cause as he hunts down Mr. Wiggles in P6. SLR Connor 7.5 seconds now behind Hoi K. In the dry, SLR Connor could definitely hold his own with the top 4, but maybe in the wet conditions his setup's just not quite allowing him to do that, and it is still raining. And good evening, Price. Going to trial Price for 82. Excellent. Well, I'm sure TD will be thrilled. Oh, and a massive drift there out of the chicane for Wiggles. And all of these slides are really going to help the Red Bull behind. He's gained by half a second this lap. And in fact, make that almost a full second. Wiggles is really struggling on these tyres now. And that guy is closing. Slapbus was within a second of Fairley, but he's now over a second, and Fairley, that gap out front is shrinking rapidly. It's gone down from 3.5 seconds to 1 second in the space of a few corners here. Ross has had a big issue and has lost a couple of seconds on the last lap, and that means now that we have no choice but to go on board with the 3 leaders, who are now only separated by just 2 seconds. So, can Ross keep his nerve here as the rain continues to fall in Hungary? We are on lap 13 of 35, still plenty of racing left. I love going on board with Ross. He's so smooth on the steering, and seems to be paying off for him right now in the wet conditions. That rain is starting to... I think the rain is subsiding a little bit from what we've seen over the past couple of laps. Tired egg, says Jota. Ross's tyres are done, says Ross fan. Well, doesn't look like that. AMS Fairley, a little bit of a mistake, lost a few tenths, and now Slapbus is all over the back of the Mercedes for P2. We've still got a good battle between SLR Connor defending P5 from Mr. Wiggles and that guy, who are both within a second of the car in front. Pete is also still within a second of Prev. Gap starting to appear down the fields. Maverick has dropped. He was 30 seconds behind the field. He's now only 23, so he is on the charge. Dayman and AJ Sam also having... Maybe they've gone in for a pit stop. Maybe we should have a look. Yeah, so Dayman has pitted. Pitted this lap actually, that's why he's dropped. Maverick served that drive through, so that's why he's a little bit far behind. AJ Sam, maybe he's had a couple of issues this race so far. Here comes the Slapbus now. Does he have enough run on Fairley here to make a move into turn 1? Doesn't look like he's close enough, and that is, I'm sure, very frustrating. Okay, only 2.8 seconds behind this gap, this group here. He's not out of it. He could be in for a podium, potentially. Ross, meanwhile, is... Well, his tyres aren't done, it would seem. He's pulling that gap out. Back out to 2.3 seconds now. Let's pick up this fight now for P5. SLR Connor. Either he's really struggling in the wet. It's just not quite his conditions, as the rain is still falling. It looked like for a second it had stopped, but it's not. And as we say that about the weather, DRS is now enabled, which means you can use it on the main straight and after turn 1. Could see a lot more overtakes here. That is very interesting, and that would imply that the rain is going to stop imminently, and it is time for dry tyres. We will have half of this race probably with slicks on the car. And here comes Slapbus into the pits. That is a very early pit stop, you might think, considering it's still raining out there. But we'll wait and see what he goes on to. I suspect it will probably be a set of the medium tyres, but it could be the set of the hard tyres. Slapbus is the first driver into the pits for slicks. And on go the mediums. Majestic says it's too early. Well, we'll have a look. This rain is still falling, but it is getting lighter. If the rain stops right now, I reckon Slapbus might have an opportunity here at an undercut. But the questions now arise, if Hoy, Fairley and Ross think it's too soon for the slicks, they can stay out on the inters and try and capitalise on the Slapbus. Let's just go on board as Dr. Edward comes into the pits now for mediums as well. AJ Sam also into the pits, and the rain has stopped. So Slapbus here could have got this call spot on. AJ Sam into the pits for soft tyres, so we'll have to check on his progress towards the end of the race on if he's doing a one-stop or a two-stop. Mr. Wiggles, meanwhile, has been overtaken by that guy on the intermediate tyres, and in comes Fairley to the pits. Ross stays out on the intermediate tyres. Allgrider with a 3-second time penalty. Hoyke stays out too. These three of SLR Connor, that guy, and Wiggles all pitting now for slicks. And it seems like the Slapbus has really caught up with those guys on the inters. This is going to be fascinating, where Fairley is going to come out of the pits, and Slapbus has absolutely destroyed Fairley on this lap. Slapbus got the decision absolutely spot on, and he has overtaken Fairley on an undercut, and he's gained 4 seconds that lap on the Mercedes driver. And that means now Slapbus will take the lead of this race when the top two pit at the end of this lap. He's only 15 seconds off the lead. Mr. Wiggles in the chat, I have floor damage, and that potentially is why that guy got past him on that occasion. That guy has managed to get past SLR Connor after the pit stops as well. Pete is still out there on the intermediate tyres, and he's going to really be struggling here. Let's go on board with Ross, and he's gone straight on at turn 13, and you can definitely sense that the track is drying, but he's staying out, is Ross. What is his strategy here? And Hoyke also staying out here. Slapbus was 11 seconds behind Hoyke at the start of this lap. Now he's only 5. He's gained 6 seconds this lap on the leaders. It seems to be a no-brainer. I can't understand why the top two haven't quite pitted yet. Maybe they know something that I don't know. Maybe it's going to continue to rain. Who knows? In comes Pete to the pits, ditching those inters. But Slapbus here, as we watch SLR Connor try and gain to the back of that guy, it would seem like SLR Connor's got a dry setup on. Slapbus now is all over the back of Hoyke, and, well, I mean, just made it look completely easy. Maverick being lapped, getting out of the way. I think potentially Slapbus got an illegal overtake on Hoyke there, which is strange. Didn't look like an illegal overtake to me, but considering the tyre differences, there's a little bit of wheel contact there between the two. Slapbus makes that look very easy. I wonder if Ross is going to come into the pits here. Again, he stays out, so maybe there is more rain coming. And oh my word, Slapbus has to put on the brakes a lot more there, as Ross is really struggling on those inters. Fairley now is past Hoyke and is about to lap Maverick, and you can see Ross really struggling with tyre wear out of turn 1. I don't quite understand. I can only assume, right, that Ross and Hoyke are expecting more rain. That's my only reason why they would stay out on the inters. But this is a very strange decision to stay out on the intermediate tyres. They have lost all of the advantage they have built up, especially Ross. Fairley is now only 2 seconds away from our race leader Slapbus, who has got the pit timing perfect, as it would seem. Oh, as we go on board with that guy who was going side by side with SLR Connor through the chicane. Bit of wheel contact there. May have slight front wing damage, depends. Rather interesting is on the hard compound tyre. Everyone else is out on the mediums, with the exception of AJ, Sam and Maverick, who are on soft tyre. Slap Bus with a new fastest lap of the race. Ross has dropped 7 or 8 seconds this lap, being on the inters, and him and Hoi K are continuing to stay out on the inters. SLR Connor, after passing that guy this lap, last lap I should say, is pulling out a nice little gap behind to the Red Bull. And Hoi K seems to have those inters in a better condition than Ross right now. He's really gaining, and here comes SLR Connor shoving his Mercedes into the fight. And a bit of contact there between Hoi K and potential contact between the Red Bull behind of that guy. And you could just sense you could just sense an incident was going to happen there. I'm not going to say whose fault it was, because obviously SLR Connor's on the correct tyre. Ross and Hoi weren't. SLR Connor did get an illegal overtake in that, but has chosen not to slow down. You may ask the stewards to get that removed, potentially, depending on the situation. Mr. Wiggles now is all over the back of SLR Connor, as is the Red Bull of that guy, so that guy is lost out. Trying to avoid Hoi K off the track. Mr. Wiggles overtook that guy, and now this is the battle for the final podium place. And still Ross is out on those inters, as is Hoi. No, Hoi is in the pits now. So Hoi ditching those intermediate tyres. And what does he put on in the pit stop? He puts on a new set of inters. And I tell you what, the rain is now falling. They knew more than we did. We thought it was a silly decision to stay out, but they knew more rain was coming. Potentially now, Ross could be back in the game. However, he's lost so much time in the dry conditions that even if the leaders were to pit for inters right now, I think they would still come out ahead of Ross, and Ross is on 20 lap old inter tyres. It definitely seemed the right call to pit for slicks. Slap Bus leads AMS Fairley by 2.3 seconds. It is starting to rain again. Now around the outside goes Mr. Wiggles, and he goes into third. However, with this rain now falling, traction is going to be a big question mark. Any of these drivers could lose it on the slick tyres in wet conditions. This race was poised beautifully out of qualifying, and we've still got 13 laps left, and we have no idea who's going to win it. That guy looking for a move on SLR Connor, who had a bit of a slide through turn 4, and oh, that guy's got great traction out of turn 5. He's effectively tailgating here, being the white van man, trying to get as close to the car in front without hitting as possible. And now Mr. Wiggles, now that the rain is starting to come, he's starting to pull a gap now. Ross into the pits for new inters, which definitely does seem like the right call at the moment. DRS is still enabled, which means that we're still expecting the slicks to be a little bit quicker. But definitely, Hoi K, by pitting earlier than Ross, has gained 12 seconds over Ross. And is being overtaken by AJ Sam, so those inters are still not firing up right now. Down the inside, goes that guy on SLR Connor, who really is struggling in wet conditions this evening. Orgriddle has retired in the pits. Went on intermediate tyres and maybe went off the track and got some damage. And there's a car round. Who is that? That is Dayman, who is on medium tyres. So maybe it's getting to the point now where Inters are going to be a little bit quicker in a lap or so. Sorry I haven't kept up with the chat an awful lot. It's been such an enthralling race. As I'm sure you can all understand, AMS Fairley now is catching our race leader. This race is going one way, then it's going a different way. We thought Ross was going to win it for a large portion of the start of this race, but now Ross is down in P12 after perhaps some strategy issues. Slapbus had a decent lead on Fairley, but now Fairley's bringing it back. We've got Pete and Prev continuing their fight this evening. It seems like they've been locked in that McLaren-Ferrari battle, which we're experiencing in real life. It's very great to see McLaren and Ferrari in real life battling this much, and they're bringing it out into the sim racing world too. Keeping an eye on Hoyke's interval behind AJ Sam, he is still losing time quite quickly, so the Inters aren't the right tyre to be on right now. Rain is not that drastic. Might not be the best call. And I've just noticed Dr. Edward, P6. What a last 10 laps he's had. Absolutely flown up the field. He does have DRS, even though it is raining. Looking for a move. Dive bomb into turn 1. Looks like he almost missed his braking point. I think Prev gave him a bit of space there. Prev got some oversteer at the exit of turn 1. Bit of contact between the two. We'll wait and see if the stewards have something to look at there. But Prev again struggling on the exit curb. And I thought that was going to end in tears. But Pete makes that move stick up to P7. And we'll wait and see if Prev can use those hard tyres and capitalise. Slapbus is our race leader, but leads AMS Fairley by only half a second, and DRS is still enabled here, so AMS Fairley still has a chance to get this move done on any lap. There are 10 laps left of this Grand Prix. Mr. Wiggles is holding a podium spot from 9th on the grid and is cementing his claim for driver of the day, but does have a time penalty. Also, that guy in SLR Connor trying to get in on the podium action. They also have time penalties, so we'll need to check in a few laps just what the penalty situation is looking like and who looks like they're going to get P3. Dr. Edward, as we say, is up to P6 and having a great race after his unfortunate crash in Q2. Hoy and Ross still out on the intermediate tyres and still losing time to AJ Sam. So it definitely is not the right call to be on the Inters right now. But they're sticking with their strategy and hoping that it pays off for them. If it rains harder, it will pay off for them. But it definitely seems like their strategy it wasn't the right one to be on. APSRP only a couple of seconds away from his teammate Prev, who was recently overtaken by Pete. He's now got a 3-second lead on Prev, and a little bit of a slide for SLR Connor coming out of the last corner. DRS is still enabled, which is enabling that guy to keep up with Wiggles. I'll tell you what, that guy is also a strong contender for driver of the day. Oike is leading the championship. It's a good point that Padge puts in the chat. Championship is back on. Oike is leading the championship by 30 points. If Fairley can win this, he will gain 25 points, and that gap will shrink to 5 points going into next week's Belgian Grand Prix. We have Pete now pitting onto Inters, also AJ Sam. AMS Fairley now is into the pits for intermediate tyres. So this rain, you can definitely see the rain has got heavier. Maybe the rain is sticking to the track. In comes Wiggles. That guy stays out to inherit P3. SLR Connor is into the pits now along with Wiggles. So, and almost crashing into the back of Haas is SLR Connor, and this is going to be absolutely critical. 21.7 is the gap between our top two. We need to keep an eye on that interval and see if that gap is going down. If that gap goes down from 21.7 seconds at the end of the lap, then Fairley will get a good undercut on Slapbus, and I tell you what, he's gained about 4 tenths so far. Slapbus is not letting this be easy. Mr. Wiggles now comes out of the pits behind Dr. Edward, who hasn't pitted for Inters. Finds himself in P4, but he might have a hard time defending this from Wiggles. And round the outside of turn 5, what a move that was there from the Haas driver. Very bold, very brave, and very committed indeed. That could definitely go into one of the overtakes of the week. Slapbus pits, and the gap out front has shrunk by a second. This lap, it seems like Fairley is going to overtake for the lead of the race through an undercut. It seems like Fairley has got this call absolutely spot on, and you can see on the track map there, they're going to be very close into turn 1. And it looks like Slapbus has just got out ahead of Fairley. Slapbus has just done enough. And that undercut attempt by Fairley has not quite worked. And Ross is into the pits and retires in the pits. A bit of a frustrating race there for Ross, as DRS is now disabled, which means that guy's into the pits for Inters. Also, Dr. Edward is into the pits for Inters. I expect Appy will be into the pits for Inters. In comes, the Ferrari driver. And a big slide there for Kasper Ackermann. Needs to be careful he doesn't speed into the pits, does well not to. Dayman also into the pits now for intermediate tyres. Oike has been out there for 6 laps on those Inters and has lost an awful lot of time. He's 26 seconds behind 9th place, and at one point it looked like he was on for a race win. And APSRP, interesting, is on the soft tyres. I wonder if he's pressed the wrong direction on his MFD. It makes no sense to be out there on the soft tyre right now. So I think Appy decided to box this lap on the MFD, changed his tyres to Inters, but changed it the wrong way, and then didn't have enough time to change it. So I hope Appy doesn't crash on those soft tyres. That would be a shame. He has driven very well this evening. And still, we have no idea who's going to win this race. We're on lap 30 of 35. Slapbus leads AMS Fairley by half a second. DRS is disabled, so it's going to be harder to overtake now. Mr. Wiggles is still holding on to a podium spot. And we did say we'll have a look at the penalties. We'll do that now. Mr. Wiggles has 3 seconds. That guy has 6 seconds. So Mr. Wiggles, even if that guy overtakes him, if he stays within 3 seconds of the Red Bull, he will take back his podium. AJ Sam into the pits again. Just check if he's got some damage there. It looked like Fairley was getting very close to the back of Slapbus. Indeed, a new front wing for the McLaren driver, and that guy now has 9 seconds of time penalties. Into the pits comes APS RP on those soft tyres, thinking, I'm not going to stick that out, I want the green tyres. Also Hoi K into the pits, taking off those old inters, putting on a set of new inters. Strange race, says Lando. Have to agree with you. It's been thoroughly entertaining though. We've seen some great action. There's been a driver at every moment in this race. There's been a driver within a second of the car in front. It's been great for a spectator and a neutral to be a part of. I imagine the drivers will be very relieved once this race comes to an end, as Pete goes a little bit wide there, who has been lapped, I believe, by the leaders. Oh no, that's AJ Sam, sorry, who's been lapped. Mr. Wiggles, another 3-second time penalty, and needs to be careful here, because if he gets another one, SL O'Connor, who has no time penalties, will jump ahead of the pair of them and steal third place. Mr. Wiggles now with 6 seconds, and that guy has 9 seconds. Meanwhile, this battle for the lead is still going on, and we still don't know who's going to win. One mistake, one bit of oversteer can cost them the win. That guy's still within a second of Mr. Wiggles. Won't have DRS, but still within striking distance. And that guy does need to get the move done. He has 3 more seconds of time penalties. SL O'Connor is 7.6 behind that guy, which means SL O'Connor will overtake that guy, but he won't overtake Wiggles on penalties as it stands. And we'll have to start thinking about driver of the day pretty soon. Let us know in the chat, who is your suggestion for driver of the day? For sure, I think Wiggles and that guy are definitely up there. But if there's anyone else that you think deserves a mention or deserves driver of the day, pop it in the chat and we will decide after the race is done. Lots of gaps forming behind Prev, who has a big gap in front and behind him. Hoi K looked like he was going to win this race or be up there on the podium, but finds himself 41 seconds behind P8. Lap 33 of 35, and that gap has extended now to a second. AMS Fairley either making a small mistake or Slapbus is really coming into his own now. We suspect these two drivers are on predominantly dry setups, so it's going to be tough for either one of these to have a distinct advantage, but I have to admit, whoever wins this, we have to say it's been a fantastic race between these two for the best part of 20 laps. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who will be applauding these two drivers for what they've achieved here this evening. and whichever one misses out on the race win will be very gutted, I'm sure. It was going back and forth between these drivers in quali. AMS Fairley had the advantage in Q1, Slapbus had the advantage in Q2. Fairley had the very slight advantage in Q3, taking pole position. And with 2 laps remaining, doesn't look like Fairley's quite close enough. Of course, this could come down to ERS management. We don't know what ERS these guys are holding on to. AJ Sam into the pits. Currently last, out of the points. The rain is still falling. AJ Sam does retire from the race. I have to say, special mention definitely Dr. Edward deserves. He's up 6 places from his starting position of 12th. And through that chicane you can see Slapbus really struggling. Fairley is now back on the engine of the Williams. Also, that guy is still within half a second of Wiggles. Wiggles and that guy need to make sure they don't get any more penalties, otherwise they may be at risk of losing out to SL O'Connor. And there is a move. The Red Bull is past Wiggles, but he's missed his braking spot. And that guy has cut the track to maintain 3rd. Do have a category of penalty in the steward handbook saying you can't gain an advantage by going off the track. If Wiggles is aware of this, he may send that into the stewards, and that could give him P3. Hoike, meanwhile, is trying to unlap himself. SL O'Connor with a 3-second time penalty, and that's critical for him. It means that he won't overtake any of these drivers on the line. And now, as we start the final lap of the race, we go on board back with the leaders. That guy has to pull a 3-second gap now on Wiggles if he wants to beat Wiggles after penalties is calculated. But we still don't know who's going to win this race. AMS Fairley has 1.5 sectors to get past the Williams, otherwise Slapbus is going to take a well-deserved win. Whoever wins out of these two, it's going to be well-deserved. Unfortunately, only one can win it. It's been an enthralling race. These two have been going back and forth throughout qualifying. And in the wet conditions, you really didn't know what was going to happen, but Slapbus now coming around the final corner, and it looks like he's done it. Again, one bit of oversteer could cost him a win, but here comes Slapbus to take the win by just 0.6 of a second. That guy struggling, and Mr. Wiggles has overtaken him on the exit of turn 11 there. Mr. Wiggles definitely using a wet setup, and you can just tell he has absolutely loved these conditions tonight. Round the final corner he comes. Has less penalties than that guy. Comes home to come from P9 to P3. That guy, though, what a race he's had. From the back of the field, P15 to P4. SL O'Connor with that time penalty would have jumped ahead of the Red Bull, but unfortunately stays P5. Dr. Edwards, again, very strong drive from him. P12 after crashing in Q2 and an early exit from qualifying. And a great result for him. He finishes P6. Pete tried desperately to gain, but that McLaren can only manage P7. I'm sure he won't be too disappointed with that. Prev coming home to finish P8. And Dayman will also cross the line very shortly to round off this race. Hoike finishing P9 of a race of what could have been if the rain was a little bit heavier or the rain carried on a little bit longer. A bad strategy call, you'd have to say. Cost him some major points and has cost him desperately in his championship lead. Hoike takes away 2 points. Fairly gains the gap by 16 points here this evening. So Hoike will have a 14-point lead going into next week's Belgian Grand Prix. And thank you for Majestic for that. Slapbus wins on only his second race in IIRL. That is definite congratulations. And, well, I could give Driver of the Day to multiple drivers. I could give it to the top two, I could give it to Wiggles, I could give it to that guy, I could give it to Dr. Edward. I really don't know who to give it to, and I'm running out of time to decide. I'm going to give a joint Driver of the Day to both Wiggles and that guy. They both deserved it. Also, Slapbus and Fairly deserved it, and they've been so dominant out in front. Look at that, 35 seconds they won. Oh, I could give it to all of the top four. I think I'm going to give it to Wiggles and to that guy, and extreme special mentions to the top two, and also to Dr. Edward for his drive through the field. So there you have it. Another race done, and my voice is going. So we will be ending the stream there. Remember, Thursday night and Sunday night we will have coverage of the Assist Tier 1 race with Spark on Thursday, and TD will take you through the Assist Tier 2 race at the Hungaroring in Hungary. Congratulations to Slapbus, who wins on his second appearance. Commiserations to AMS Fairly, but still a fantastic drive. Congratulations to Wiggles and that guy for Drivers of the Day. Thank you to everyone who's been in the chat. It's been a pleasure to watch the racing and to be with you guys, and we'll see you on Thursday evening.